I think the gentleman will now enter a second round of questioning. I know we have a couple of other members who were seeking to waive on, and we will again alternate according to seniority on both sides of the aisle. So I recognize myself for another round of questioning. Let me just kind of go back to Mr. Ed Green. When you look at, what is your, I guess, analysis of how many victims you can identify that have occurred here in the United States, and then, secondly, what's been the response by government agencies to those victims from the time that they report it to the communication between agencies, if any communication exists, and maybe focus a little bit on the FBI?
Yep, thank you. I can't get into specifics about the numbers, but after having talked with Mr. Zaid about this, I could say comfortably.
Why can't you talk about the numbers just so everybody can understand?
Because numbers and specific locations of attacks are classified. But I can tell you roughly 20 to 30% of the cases that I saw were in the Homeland. In terms of the response on the Homeland, it gets tricky because it involves authorities here within the FBI. And what I have found is that we needed a faster response mechanism. The U.S. government doesn't have a central clearinghouse for AHIs.
Okay.
So let's say someone in the Air Force is attacked on soil. How do you quickly find out about that and freeze the crime scene and go out and evaluate it?
And there's no coordination that's happening in between departments and agencies and organizations?
It's happening, but it's very slow. It involves letterhead memorandum that takes weeks to process. CCTV footage expires in this town within 24 hours.
Talk to me about the classification. Who classified it?
You'd have to ask the ODNI.
Okay,
they oversaw all things related.
Your understanding and what you're testifying to now is it is classified, so there is an acknowledgement of an issue.
Clearly, sir, there is.
Mr. Grozev, I'll ask you the same question. How has the FBI handled the complaints and the, you want to call them, the victims and their, I guess, reaching out to within the FBI? How have they handled it?
I'm not privy to that investigation. From my incidental observations, my belief is that the FBI feel that they have to toe the line of the intelligence community on this topic, and some of them feel that they wish they could do more to protect their own colleagues.
Okay. Are they being told, is it your feeling that they're being told from superiors or others within the FBI to stand down?
I do not have evidence they've been told, but being patriots, it might be a self-imposed limitation to not contradict the overall finding of the Director of National Intelligence.
I'll ask the same thing to you, Mr. Zayed. Is that your understanding, or is there something similar to that going on?
Without a doubt, I think the FBI is becoming better, more receptive, but I'll give you a perfect example. In March of 2021, the FBI drafted a workforce message concerning AHIs to go to everyone about what to do, how to report it. It took them 6 months to issue that notice. During that time, my client, Carrie, who's in the 60 Minutes episode, was hit. That workforce message still didn't go out, and it took a long time to even get medical care for many of the FBI victims. It has been a complicated process. There are specifics that we could absolutely provide to in a more protected environment, more so for the privacy of the individuals, but also from a classification standpoint that would show you where the system has broken down.
How high does this go? I mean, we're talking about, as has been testified to today, high, successful, well-performing people. But, I mean, can you give us some details about how high this goes in our government?
From a victim standpoint?
Yes,
or
from a victim standpoint.
I mean, it has been reported individuals connected to the NSC and the White House have been impacted.
As Lieutenant Colonel Ed Green, those that could brief the president up to.
Yeah, and some of them have been public in some prior 60 Minutes episodes of believing that they have been impacted. And I mean, there would be evidence that would be in the classified sphere.
Of the incidents that are happening in, say, Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C., are family members also reporting having symptoms and being attacked?
Not as many. Usually it has been in the overseas locations where the family members have been impacted, generally because it is, as I described in that NSA memo, bathing the residents. And, they have no idea who might be inside the residence. That's where literally pets have been impacted because they've been in the beam, the wave, whatever. There have been government buildings impacted in Northern Virginia, and it's usually been individuals either in their home, hotels, or driving.
Is it the panel's belief that this is primarily happening from, attributed to Russian operatives?
I've said this before, there's an extremely strong Russia nexus. Inside China, I think that changes a bit.
And quickly, Mr. Grozov.
We have the specific evidence of Russian operatives being in China at the time when American diplomats suffered incidents. This could not have happened without the knowledge and at least passive cooperation by Chinese intelligence, which means Chinese intelligence would be exposed to the capabilities and possibility of such a weapon, which probably means they have developed their own version or borrowed it from Russia.
Thank you. All right. My time's expired. I recognize the ranking member.
Thank you. Mr. Edgren, we started talking about, the lack of government action recognizing this issue. You compared this to Agent Orange and some of the other ailments our military personnel have suffered, and it takes decades to acknowledge that, yes, this is an issue, it's a medical issue to be taken care of, to be treated on a long-term basis. It's kind of where we started today. I think that I agree with you and with the chairman and Mr. Swalwell, who worked on this issue for a long time, that we do have to take care of the victims the best we can. Now we're shifting to something else, which is essentially a cover-up. What you all are saying is there's a government cover-up of the fact that something is out there afflicting, targeting us. Is this where we're going with this?
Thank you. Great points. I won't get into classification of the problems. I will tell you that the government in the IC assessment is wrong. It's dead wrong. I can't tell you if it's a cover-up, why they're doing this, malfeasance. I won't go there. What I can tell you is that it's my firm belief we already have attribution. Right now is the time for action, retribution. And we need to prioritize taking care of our people because there's a lot of survivors and their families that have been attacked here in the homeland that are in a long wait line to get to Walter Reed because we're not executing funding that's already been allocated by you gentlemen to take care of these survivors. You fix Walter Reed and the Defense Health Program, everyone benefits.
Mr. Zaid.
So, sir, I've been working in the national security field for 30 years, representing some of our most covert intelligence officers, who I respect a great deal, and the agencies. The word cover-up, I will tell you that there are many legitimate reasons why there could be what the agencies are doing, to explain why they are doing it. What I will tell you is
Would you
that
say,
the public
would you use a
statements-
cover-up as a statement or other words?
So cover-up would depend on intent. There could be good reasons to withhold information. I will say that the public statements that the executive branch is making is inconsistent with the classified record. And then it would be Congress's job as an oversight authority to determine why that is, whether it was a legitimate reason to mislead the public or because of some nefarious reason, or all the above. But the record on the inside in the classified theater is not consistent with the public statements.
Mr. Grozov.
If this is true, and it depends partly on classified data that I'm not privy to, then it's a judgment call that was made to mislead the public in the interest of national security interest. But it will be up to Congress to decide whether that judgment call was correct. One additional effect of such a judgment call that may not have been taken into account is the effect of encouraging the hostile power. In the hypothesis that this is indeed a Russian covert operation, and the whole intelligence community of the United States has publicly denied this ever happening, this will be such a trigger, such an incentive for Russia to escalate and it will be, for somebody who knows how the mind of President Putin works, I can tell you that if they did it, and the United States government has concluded they didn't do it, this will encourage an escalation in the war in Ukraine. This will encourage an escalation because this person thinks the rest of the world are complete idiots, and really that's how his mind works. So take this into account when you assess the judgment call.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? Chairman, go ahead, Mr. Edgren.
I would just like to thank this committee for focusing on this issue. One of the things we always did at the DIA was not questioning the individual, are they really having symptoms? We got immediate care for every single symptom, and I think that's the right way to do it. In terms of attribution, I think we over-empowered CIA analysts, and when they kicked it up the food chain to OD&I for NIC assessment, when you look at it, the people they kicked it up to were other CIA analysts on loan. So this was a self-licking ice cream cone. We need more people inside the Department of Defense or with an operational background to look at this. Because if you show an analyst flowers, they're going to look for a wedding. You show a case officer those flowers, they're going to look for a funeral.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
And I thank the ranking member. Chair, and I recognize the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Crane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This next question is for Mr. Zaid and Ed Green. Are either of you aware of any individuals who have AHI symptoms have passed away from their ailments?
I do.
I do.
Do we know how many that you're aware of? Do we need to discuss that somewhere else?
For the privacy of the families, it's a small community.
Right. Mr. Chairman, are we going to be able to move into a classified setting at some point or at another time?
I think that possibility will exist at a later time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's concerns that the FBI has totally dropped the ball on this investigation. Would the panelists agree with that assessment?
I would, and I would say that a great question for you to ask is to the FBI, how many people did you have assigned to this? And they're going to come back with a big number. And then you're going to ask, how many people were assigned to this full time? And then you're going to see the looks on their faces. Because by my accounts, I had roughly 2 officers from the field office, I had a GS-15 at headquarters, and an analyst. And the best one out of all of them was the analyst. And I'll say they all had additional duties. That wasn't their main job. They were doing things like looking at January 6th, looking at terrorism threats here in DC. So it's been very small. It hasn't been resourced properly. And anytime you work with the FBI, and this is fascinating because I did my whole career abroad, it's easier, they put things into a black box. And one of the main problems we had is they had on a criminal hat, crim as they say in the FBI, and not a CI hat.
Gotcha. Do you believe that Homeland Security investigation should get engaged in this investigation?
Absolutely, because they were cut out. You only had, I believe, my time there, 1 Homeland Security officer. She was an analyst for Secret Service. Homeland Security investigation should be involved.
Have any of you 3 panelists ever seen one of these weapons?
I have seen a 1991 version of the weapon, and it looks like a satellite dish with a unit this size attached to it. And of course, over the years, miniaturization has been possible. Obviously, there's a limitation to how miniaturized it can be because of the antenna size, which is always related to the wave. But still, it is something that can be well contained in the trunk of a car or even a large backpack.
Is this a type of weapon that could be cobbled together once foreign operatives are on our own soil, or is this something that would have to be manufactured in a nation state?
My experience shows that it can be cobbled together. It's something that a rough, crude version of this that would probably require longer exposure than the more advanced version that has been tested, as we see from this document, can be put together inexpensively. But again, I would abstain from commenting further, lest I encourage people to try it at home.
That would make this weapon and this tactic even more dangerous, wouldn't it, Mr. Grozev?
Correct.
Can you tell us, sir, about this contract you discovered for these weapons?
The contract was an award by the Institute for Prospective Military Studies, an annual award that means that this was the best development for a unit, research and development achievement for a unit whose goal is to encourage the production and manufacturing and discovery and invention in the area of new weapons, both lethal and non-lethal. I know that this same commander won the award of this institute 2 years in a row. We're only privy to one of his devices, to one of his achievements. We don't know what the subsequent years' delivery from him was. But again, I mentioned this in order for you to understand that the perceived value, the perceived merit by the Kremlin of this particular award, of this particular achievement, was high enough for it to be the only award for the year, and for this person to achieve a political placement, a position that is not usual for a security operative. And this is the value of our finding. This was a very momentous moment for the Kremlin, this particular achievement.
Mr. Chairman, can I have 30 more seconds? I think it was you, Mr. Grozev, who said that in your investigation, you were able to conclude that one of these units who was operating on our soil was found near individuals that contracted these illnesses. How were you able to confirm this unit's proximity to individuals who experienced these injuries?
We've used over the years a amalgamation of data sources from the Russian market of data, which is a unique phenomenon. We've obtained border crossing data, we've obtained ticketing data, hotel reservation data, and telephone communication data for essentially 60 members of this unit that we've identified over the years.
Have any of them been apprehended, Mr. Grozev?
Several of them have been indicted. 6 of them are indicted in Bulgaria including the person that we just referred to, the engineer who discovered the acoustic weapon or delivered it. They're indicted, but they're hidden, well hidden in Russia and cannot be apprehended.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.